Well, welcome to my second video on comparing C++ with Python. In my last video, I talked about looping. Today I'm going to talk about functions, how they're made and implemented in the two different languages. We'll first take a look at C++. We can see that I've already put in the pound include statement and the namespace, and I have all these function prototypes. Prototypes are something that C++ requires to map out what the program is going to look like. All they are is the name of the function and the data types for everything. Once we have the prototype all put together, we can come down and look at how we actually created the functions. I've made several functions that do basic math calculations. We're going to be mostly looking at this function right here, the multiplication one. The syntax that is necessary to create a function like this, we first have to define the return type. And I'm going to be returning an integer in this function, and then we have to name the function. Since we're multiplying two numbers together, I'm going to go ahead and call this one mult function. After the name, in parentheses, we have to put in our parameters. We're going to be passing in two variables. We have to define the data type and the variable, separated by a comma. Once we've done, then we come down into the actual body of the function. The body is put in between these weird looking brackets here. This one has a very short body. It is just return the product of those two variables. When we come up into our main, we have to call that function that we created. We do this by first creating a variable to put that function into. When we put the function, when we set the function equal to this variable, we're really just saying whatever we returned equal to this variable. We type it out, we define the variable type and the variable, set it equal to the name of the function, and we pass through our parameters. These parameters are going to be 10 and 5. I went ahead and did the same thing with another function, just to show how multiple functions would look. I had to use a different variable to put the function into, so I used add answer, since we're using the addition function. And we name the function and pass in the parameters again. We'll go ahead and see what this looks like. We can see that 10 times 5 is 50, and 2 is 4. So we know that the functions are working well. Now to take a look at it in Python. Python makes it a lot simpler than C++. We don't need prototypes or calls or headers. All we have to do is tell Python that we're going to define a function. We're going to name this one. We're going to stick with the multiplication function, since we've already seen what it can do. Once we've named it, we'll go ahead and pass in. We'll tell it it's just going to take two parameters. Use the colon and indentation, just like in the loops, to say what the body of the function looks like. And then we're just going to, just like we did in C++, we're going to return the product of x and y. When we run this program in our shell, I'm going to go ahead and save it, we can see that it doesn't display anything. It did run the program though. The only reason it doesn't display anything is because we didn't tell it to. All we've done is load this function in the shell. Now that it's in the shell, we can, if we want to see what the result of that function was, all we have to do is type out mult function. We'll name the function and pass two parameters. We'll keep everything the same for consistency's sake. And we see that 5 times 10 is 50, just like we got for C++. And that is basically how functions are done in both C++ and Python. We can just like for loops, we can see that both languages use the same function. They just have different means of creating these functions, but basically doing the same thing.